Hello, this is the first video I'm going to make to explain my platform for the new party I'm forming, the Labour Party of Canada, and I have 20 different points in the videos I'm going to make. This is video number 1. We're going to go through the first 4, the most important 4, and in the other videos we'll get into the other stuff. Number 1, I'm going to work out our issues with the United States. If you want to focus on green and trade, and they've always been our largest and closest trading partner, Canada and the US should be doing business without issue with one another. And if that means we protect our border to keep illegals and drugs from flowing into the US from Canada, we should do that. If we have to start buying more goods from other countries, such as European countries, or as far away as China, way over here, across an ocean to Canada, when we can buy and sell goods right here and get everything we need. We should have much more business in Canada, and there's a few things that we can do to make that happen. That means shaking hands, putting aside our differences with the US, and focusing on our strengths and our close history with one another. It is far easier to manufacture something in Ontario, put it on a truck, take it down into the US, grab something from Oklahoma, and bring it back into Canada. The other alternative is, if you go elsewhere in the world, you load something on a truck, you take it to a port at either end of the country, you ship it across the ocean on a freighter, into another port, onto another truck, into another warehouse, distributed onto another truck, and out into the stores. We can do that all right here without the port, without the freighters. It would be much easier to keep things within North America and trade with the US. Economically, that makes perfect sense, because if you start shipping things on freighters, shipping costs go through the roof. And everything you buy and sell to someone else costs way more than it should. Point number 2, and a very important point, is opening the Northwest Passage. The reason for doing that, if you look at maritime traffic, it is busy. If you look at the cost to get through the Panama Canal, it's $300,000 per large vessel. That could be a freighter, a cruise ship, and that's an excessive cost that we could compete with quite easily. Again, maritime traffic, zoom in just a little bit. If you look at the Panama Canal, they are down to 15 vessels a day, which is not very good. A lot of freighters come down the St. Lawrence River. They make their way into Toronto, out into the Great Lakes. They come to our west coast, so Vancouver, Delta. The east coast, we have St. John, North Sydney, Nova Scotia, St. John's, Newfoundland, and the many ports on the east coast in the US. But again, this is a lot of traffic. What happens in some cases, there are ports along Mexico. The goods are then put on trucks, trucked across Mexico and the lower US, put on another freighter, and makes their way across the ocean out into other nations. If we go north a little bit, there's the Northwest Passage. Since there would be far more than 15 vessels a day, as the Panama Canal used to traverse 50 vessels a day through the canal. More would like to, but the capabilities aren't there. We have that ability, and there's a few ways to make it happen. One is, obviously, with icebreakers, and we'll get to how we're going to pay for them in just a minute. In through the Labrador Sea, Davis Strait, through Baffin Bay, up past Resolute, and out through into the Beaufort Sea. And let's be honest here, it wouldn't just be Canadian goods and American goods to travel through. Along the way, we would obviously have to set up a few bases for search and rescue. A couple of military bases wouldn't be such a bad idea if the need arose. And by opening this passage, as far as I see it, and as far as we are concerned, as long as they are paying the fee, the Northwest Passage would be open to any vessel that would like to cross through. Our job would simply be to keep the passage open, maintain its safety, bust through the ice to allow them to pass, do some inspections, obviously, the seaworthiness of the ship, and we would be inspecting the goods as well, because they are crossing through Canadian waters. If you do the math, it adds up pretty quick with the Panama Canal at $300,000 per crossing. And we were conservative about 25 ships per day that crossed through. That's $7.5 million per day. That's $1 billion every 133 days, or roughly $3 billion a year. That's a very conservative estimate. Now let's talk about how we're going to pay for that. The first thing I would do is cut all funding to media and radio in Canada. At one point in time, it made perfect sense to do that, but other opportunities are now available. The CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the National Film Board of Canada, NFB, and the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, CRTC, I would defund them all. To add to this, that would include all local radio stations as well, which a lot of people don't know this. 40% of their revenue is paid for by tax dollars. If you drive 30 minutes to work, that's 1 hour a day, 5 hours a week, and you will listen to the same 10 songs again and again and again until something new arrives, along with a healthy mixture of ads. There are other options available. Satellite radio, you can download stuff off of YouTube, turn it into an MP3, put it in a USB drive, and plug it into your radio. I do that. There's Spotify, SoundCloud, and many, many other options that would cost you significantly less than you are currently paying now. The CBC alone received $1.24 billion in 2022 and $1.4 billion in 2021. That will buy some icebreakers. It will set up some infrastructure for search and rescue and open up the Northwest Passage. There is also one more thing I would like to touch on. I would sell off Canada Post. Again, at one point in time, they were the only option. It made perfect sense to fund them to deliver Canadian mail from one end of this country to the other. There are now other options. Canada Post would still be an option. It would just be run and managed by someone else. A private service. Canadian tax dollars don't need to go toward this. Their current asset value is $13.3 billion. In 2024, they are operating at a $1 billion a year loss. That difference of $1 billion is paid for by you. Just in Canada Post loss from 1 year and the CBC, that is $2.4 billion. When you add up the rest of it, that would help us a lot and allow us to take a look at a new revenue stream, such as the Northwest Passage. There are the first 4 points in my platform, and I'll get to the other 16 in a future video. Have a good one, everybody.